So, what happens when one of the most famous cocktail bars in the world decides to raise money? But not from Wall Street. What if they turn to the very people lining up outside their door every single night? Well, that's the story of Death & Co. And it's a fascinating look at how they turned their loyal customers into their most powerful investors. Let's get into it. All right, so here's our game plan. We're gonna start with the bar's completely chaotic but wildly successful beginning. Then we'll look at the huge growth problem they ran into. After that, we'll dive into the really cool funding solution they came up with, see how it tapped into the power of their community, and finally, check out how they're totally redefining what it means for a business like this to exit. Okay, so you gotta picture this. It's New York City, a 24-year-old fine art student, David Kaplan, who has zero business experience, decides he's gonna open a super complex, high-end cocktail bar. He pretty much admits he was just naive enough to think it could work, because honestly, on paper, it was a crazy idea. And when success hit, man, it hit like a freight train. Kaplan wasn't just surprised, he was, in his own words, absolutely terrified. They opened on New Year's Eve of 2006, and he had no idea what was about to happen. I mean, think about how chaotic that must have been. They were so successful, so fast, that they were just completely unprepared. We're talking about using an old school cash register that couldn't even break a $100 bill and handwriting every single order on those little triplicate pads. They were basically a viral hit running on duct tape and a prayer. Their rise was just explosive. They opened their doors at the very end of 2006, and just 5 days later, they land on the front page of the New York Times Sunday Style section. I mean, come on. Overnight, a line forms out the door that pretty much never goes away. And that insane momentum took them from one little chaotic bar to a national brand with 4 locations. But, that kind of runaway success, it creates a whole new class of problems. With big plans to open more bars, maybe even get into the hotel business, Death & Co. needed serious money to grow. And that brought them to a huge fork in the road. So on one side, you've got the old school traditional route, go hat in hand to these big, impersonal family offices for a check. And on the other side, there's this newer, tech-driven approach, go directly to the people, to the crowd. For Kaplan, this wasn't just about finding the cash. It was about finding partners who actually got what they were doing. And Kaplan actually did meet with those traditional investors, but he said he realized almost immediately that it was a total culture clash. They were nice enough, sure, but as he puts it right here, they just weren't the right partners. They didn't understand the brand's soul. And this is where things get really cool. This led him to an answer that was just so perfectly in tune with the community-first vibe of the bar: investment crowdfunding. He realized, wait a minute, I can let the very people who love this place own a piece of it.
So for anyone who's not familiar, investment crowdfunding is pretty much what it sounds like. Instead of getting one massive check from some venture capital firm, you raise smaller amounts of money from a huge number of regular people, usually online. You're literally turning your biggest fans into actual stakeholders in your company.
And what made this so powerful was just how accessible it was. For Death & Co., the minimum investment was only $1,000. This opened the door not to a few millionaires, but to hundreds of their regular customers, the very people who had already made the bar a hit. And becoming an investor wasn't just a piece of paper. It came with some seriously awesome perks. We're talking discounts on your drinks, invites to special cocktail classes, and maybe the best perk of all for a place this popular, priority reservations. It wasn't just a financial transaction. It made these investors true brand insiders. And this, right here, is the biggest advantage of their whole strategy. It wasn't just about money. It was about finding partners who were already emotionally invested, and now they'd be financially invested too. That creates this incredibly powerful, super aligned community. So instead of walking into some stuffy, wood-paneled boardroom, Kaplan walked into this open floor plan office that felt just like a tech startup. And it was full of what he called young, super type A-driven folks. The whole vibe was buzzing with energy and new ideas, a total world away from traditional finance. And this was his big aha moment. He was a little skeptical at first, but then it just clicked. This funding model wasn't just some clever tool. It was basically a continuation of the exact philosophy that made Death & Co. a success in the first place, building something incredible through a passionate Somapalavanian community. So, the big question, did it work? Oh yeah, you bet it did. In their very first crowdfunding campaign back in 2018, they raised almost $3 million. This was the ultimate proof that turning to your community wasn't just a cute, feel-good story.
It was a seriously powerful and legitimate business strategy.
So what's the long-term plan here? Kaplan is really open about it. He's looking for an exit in the next 3 to 5 years. Now that's a word that can sound a lot like selling out, right? But for him, it means something totally different.
See, his ultimate goal isn't just about a big personal payday. His ambition is way bigger than that. He wants to prove to the entire hospitality industry that a high-end cocktail bar can be a serious, high-return investment just as legitimate as a big restaurant group or a hotel chain. And this right here is his whole mission: to show everyone that you can generate fantastic returns for your investors, especially when those investors are your own customers, without ever sacrificing the quality and the integrity that made people fall in love with you in the first place. It's really about elevating the whole craft.
What Death & Co. has done is pretty remarkable. They've given us a powerful new blueprint for how to build a brand. By turning their fans into their funders, they've created this deeply passionate community that's invested in every single sense of the word. And it leaves us with a really interesting question to think about. Could this be the future of how great brands are built?